Students, hello students. Yeah, we have today's class on associative learning. In the earlier classes, we had studied supervised learning and unsupervised learning. We also saw various classification methods. We also saw support vector machine, radial basis function, all the algorithms we have gone through, some applications also we have discussed. So today we will go to associative learning. We had a little mention about it in the initial classes. Hope you remember when we did error backpropagation neural network, we had studied uh, properties of actual learning methods. So there we discussed learning methods should have a pattern completion property. Did you remember? Yeah, classifiers, some of the good classifiers, they follow pattern completion property. For example, when you see the TV, in the TV, when you see pictures, if still there is some noise or some incomplete patterns like faces are not properly visible, still you can make out, right? And that property is called pattern completion property. So we will have a detailed discussion in this module. Okay, for example, if conscious, the word conscious, what is the spelling of it? CONCIOUS. That O and I you interchange, could you able to find that difference? Difficult, right? Why it is difficult? Because humans, when we see any pattern, so because we had such a training, so we will ignore, we cannot notice that change. Okay, same way, when you are not able to hear any audio properly over phone, even if it is there is lot of disturbance, but still you can make the words by comparing the nearby words and sentences. This is also called pattern completion property, which we will discuss in detail uh, in this module. Okay, so human memory is associative in nature. Okay, the facts and information which are recalled by us in terms of associations with already stored knowledge. In the sense, suppose uh, your class, your school friend, suppose someone takes his name, immediately you will remember everything about him. So this is associative learning. The facts and information are recalled in terms of associations with already stored knowledge. Example, when you read a word conscious, you can see here different words. You can you cannot find that difference. Conscious. Okay. Then recalling the name of a friend, which will create a large number of emotions. Suppose you remember your schoolmate, immediately you will remember everything, all behavior, everything you remember, right? So this is associative learning. So associations link one stimulus to other or stimulus to a behavioral response. Okay, association link one stimulus with the other and stimulus with a behavior. Memories are laid down by a thorough combination of complex learning mechanism which will lead into plasticity. Memories are laid down through a combination of complex learning mechanism which will lead into plasticity. Plasticity means the ability of the brain to change and adapt based on experience with examples. Okay, plasticity means it is the ability of the brain with which it can change and adapt based on experience with examples. Previously seen patterns, previous experience, you will act, and that property is called plasticity. Okay, memories are laid down by a thorough combination of complex learning mechanisms which will lead into plastic changes. Plastic changes means uh, its brain's ability to change and adapt to the based on the experience. Okay, okay. Yeah, we'll continue. The, these plastic changes either strengthen or weaken the synaptic connections. Okay, because you see certain things repeatedly, you feel, suppose you hear some noise in the road. So after a number of times, soon you listen, you get irritated. Why it happens? Because the plastic changes will either strengthen or weaken the synaptic connections, or it may lead to growth of a new synapse. Okay, it may cause growth of a new synapse based on environment or past experience, etc. And recent research on this, which will indicate that there is a direct link between synapses and the behavior. In the brain, you have synaptic connections between neurons, and these synapses have direct link with the behavior. Okay, so we are interested in finding what kind of synaptic changes lead useful learning and how we can use these principles in computations. Okay, so what kind of synaptic changes can cause what kind of learning, and how we can adopt this principle into our learning machines or classifiers. Okay, so in the brain, hippocampus is the region which is responsible for storing the declarative memory and information. There is a region called hippocampus which is responsible for storage of information which is declarative in nature. Structure and mechanism of working of this region, hippocampus, which will suggest us how associative learning takes place. So before understanding how associative learning works, we need to understand structure and mechanism of the hippocampus region. Okay, you can see in the right side a picture where it's a representative picture where three regions are shown in the brain. There are three major pathways. One is called perforant fiber pathway, which you can see in the right bottom. Perforant fiber, which is a neuron only. Perforant fiber is a neuron which has axon, dendrites, everything. Structure is slightly varies from other neurons. There are slight changes are there between neurons of different region. Okay, neurons are present in the entire body, from the brain, spinal cord, every organ. Wherever you feel sensation, there are neurons. But their structure and function slightly differs. What the neurons present in the brain, what function, what is their structure, varies to the peripheral neuron. And within the brain also there are changes in structure and function. Okay, three major pathways we'll discuss. They are perforant fiber pathway, then mossy fiber pathway, and then Schaffer collateral path. Okay, these are the three pathways. Pathways means a way to pass the electric impulses through the neurons. Okay, along the neuron fibers. So one of them is perforant fiber pathway, which will run through granule cells in the dentate region, which you can see in this diagram. Okay, then granule cells which are present in this region, they connect to mossy fiber pathway through neurons, through the axons. And mossy fiber pathway is in the region CA3. It is a region in the brain which is responsible for some actions. The cells in this region, they will connect to pyramidal cells in Schaffer collateral path. Schaffer collateral path is another pathway where neural signals move. Okay, and this Schaffer collateral path is in CA1 region. Okay, to continue further, we will discuss a definition called long-term potentiation. What does this mean? Yeah, we were discussing about plastic changes in the nerves. Plastic changes means how it changes in the sense depending on the environment or past experience, permanent changes in the structure and function. They are called Yeah. So what is long-term potentiation? Because of some environment or the past experience, the structure gets evolved, like neural structure or the strength of the synaptic connection. Those things will increase or change. I'm audible, right, to all of you? Hello? Hello? Yeah, I'm audible, right? Okay, okay. Okay. Yeah, we were discussing about long-term potentiation, uh, where we discussed a high frequency stimulus which can cause an increase in the excitatory postsynaptic potential. Okay, excitatory means there are two types of neurons. One is excitatory, one is inhibitory, which we saw in our initial classes. And postsynaptic potential means output of the neurons. Like when you give a excitation from different axons to the neuron, they will add up, and what is the output from this neuron, which you call it as postsynaptic potential. Okay, there are two kinds of excitations. One is excitatory signal, another is inhibitory signal. Two types of excitations are possible. With excitatory postsynaptic potential, it happens in the pyramidal neurons in CA1 region, which we saw. Okay, so this excitatory postsynaptic potential increases with stimulus, and it will remain and last for long time, hours to weeks. This property is called long-term potentiation. The stimulus which you apply, which will remain and last for longer, few hours to weeks, and this property is called long-term potentiation. Okay, and this property, long-term potentiation, has three properties. They are cooperativity, associativity, and specificity. Now we'll see each of these. What is cooperativity? The long-term potentiation at the region CA1, which we saw, which cannot be produced by activating only one fiber. There is a minimum number of fibers which should be activated so that you will get a output. If only one fiber excites, you will not get any output. A number of fibers, when they activate, then only you will get a high output. Okay. Then another property is associativity, where both strong and weak excitatory inputs, if they arrive at a same place, then the weak signal gets potentiated. Potentiated means increase in its magnitude if it is activated in association with a strong input. Okay, associativity means when you have a strong input as well as a weak input, when they are presented together, the weak signal also get increased, or weak signal is potentiated because it is associated, it is activated together. Okay, this property is called associativity. Then specificity. What is specificity? Long term potentiation happens only in particular region of the brain and only in a particular cells, and this property you call it as specificity. Long term potentiation happens only in CA1 region, that too in the dendrites cells or dendrites neurons, nowhere else in the body. Okay, that is called specificity. So long-term potentiation exhibits three properties: cooperativity, associativity, and specificity, which we saw, and some examples also we discussed. Okay, now based on this we'll define associative memory model. Okay, associative memory we discussed. Now we'll see how artificial associative memory can be developed. Whatever we understood so far, based on these things, we'll develop a mathematical model of associative memory. Okay, so associative memory, of course, it makes use of associative learning, which we discussed. Associative memory maps data from an input space to data in an output space. Obviously, there is an input, there is an output, and associated with it, there are a space. It translates the data from an unknown domain points to known range points. This memory learns an underlying association or connection using a training data set. This model is also called matrix associative memory. Okay, you have an input space, you have an output space, and then the functional connection between these two spaces is learned in the associative memory. The model is also called as matrix associative memory. The connection matrix W, which will encodes the associations. If the connection is 1, then there is association, and if the connection is 0, there is no association. So we saw in our earlier discussion that generally when you have a training set, you have q number of patterns in it. Okay, so here we were discussing input and output. Let us denote input as AI and output as BI. And there are q such input output pairs. Okay, and input AI has a dimension of n. Okay, it is binary input, so we call it as b power n. If at all it was a real space, we could have had r power n. So your input spans n dimensional binary space, and output also spans m dimensional binary space. Is it clear? Is this notation is clear? Is this notation is clear? Okay, let us continue. Yeah, the right side what you can see is the associative memory model. Okay, the mathematical, it is represented as what is given in the left side. You can see this expression. Okay, AI BI, where I takes values from 1 till q, and input is drawn from n dimensional binary space, and output is also drawn from m dimensional binary space. Okay, we saw that the connection matrix in the associative memory, which encodes the associations between input to the output, AI with BI. Okay, now how many such AI BIs are possible? How many AI BIs are possible? Yes. How many A and B are possible? You can see from this expression how many A's are possible, how many B's are possible. What is A?
2.
Yeah, what is A? A is the input. What is B? B is the output. Okay. How many input outputs are possible in the training set? Hello? How many input outputs are
Q.
possible? Okay, how many patterns
Q
we have
number
in
of
the training set? How many patterns are there? Hello? Yeah, we have q number of patterns, so we have q input output pairs. Okay, now each of this input output pair, we have to find out the connection, functional connection between input to the output, with what operations on A1 leads me to B1. Okay, so I have an input. On that input I will have some operations which will give me the output. So this operator we have to find out from the training data. And what are our training data? AI, BI, which varies from 1 till q. I varies from 1 till q. Q is your training set. You have to derive the connection between input to output. Okay, this is what we have to do. Don't complicate. This is a mathematical equations. Just understand in simple way. You have input and output pair. You have to find out with what rule you get output from the input. What are the operators in between? This you have to find out. Okay, you have to find out this operator such that all the inputs map to the all the outputs. You feed A1, you should get B1. With the same rule, on feeding A2, you have to get B2, and so on, Q times. For Q inputs, we have to get the respective output. Such operator we have to search and find out, and that is done by associative learning in this application. Okay. Yeah. Now AI and BI is one of the encoded memories. Encoded means programmed. Okay. The functional connectivity we have to find out. BI is called an associate of AI. Okay. Presentation of A which will produce a response or output called B. If A dash is close to some encoded association AI, then B dash is generated should be close to BI, correct? Input is AI, output is BI. If A dash is near to AI, of course output should be near to BI. This is the assumption we are making here. Okay. So when they belong to different spaces, the input is n-dimensional binary space and output is m-dimensional binary space, which we can represent by this expression. So if the output is equal to input, then the model is called auto-associative model. And if BI and AI they are differ, then it is called hetero-associative model. Okay. If BI and AI both of them belong to n-dimensional binary space, then we call that model as auto-associative memory. And if they are not equal, then we call it as hetero-associative memory. Okay. We'll see that. Is it clear? Okay. Next we'll see auto-associative memory model. Okay. So what is associative memory? We discussed. It has different properties which are fault tolerance and also auto associativity. It has two properties. Fault tolerance means we discussed in the initial chapters. It is robust to noise. If noise is also present with the signal, still it has to robustly classify. It shouldn't misclassify, it should classify correctly. That property is called fault tolerance. Then auto associative property means pattern completion property. Okay, these two properties it will satisfy, or associative memory satisfy these two properties, fault tolerance and auto associativity. Okay, one example you can see in the right side, that pictorial representation you may refer. Two layers are connected through a connection matrix W, n cross m. To the left side we have input vector, right side we have output vector, and the connection is n cross m. Okay. If all the neurons are linear, then how you can compute the output? And if all the neurons are not linear, then how you can compute the output? This aspect we'll see. So you are studied in the first initial classes where if you have an input, it will get multiplied by the weight vectors, and then a threshold operation is applied so that you will get an output. Now what happens in linear neurons? You multiply with the weight and then output is same as this itself. In linear neurons, you don't have a threshold operation. Output is equal to weighted input only. So you can write this expression, B is equal to A transpose W. A is the input, W is the connection matrix, and B is the output. So when the neurons are linear, you can write B is equal to A transpose W. And if they are non-linear, then you have to map this A transpose W using some non-linear function to get the output. Okay, if neurons are non-linear, then you have to map this A transpose W with the threshold function and to get the output. You studied all the threshold functions also, like sigmoid, logistic, etc. You have studied in the initial chapters. Okay. So any doubts in auto associations? Any doubts? Okay, I hope you studied and followed. Hope I hope that you have studied it well, and much mathematical treatment was not there today. We had mainly little structure of the associative memory and structure of the brain you had in detail, and some elementary mathematics you had. Okay. Next, we have to move to linear associative memory. Non-linear we don't touch, and then we'll move to Hopfield networks, where how to learn the classifier, how to learn the neural network, and we'll study learning rule using associative learning, which we call it as Hebbian learning. Okay, we'll study a rule called learning rule, which we call it as Hebbian learning. Okay, so any doubts, anything you have not followed, we can discuss. Yeah, any doubts? Okay, hope you have studied. In the next class, we'll see Hopfield network and some of its applications. Any doubts? Okay, the PPT I will share. Meanwhile, notes also I will upload. Okay. See you in the next class. Okay, see you in the next class.